Hey friends, it's Tracy. Welcome to today's video. I am back again sharing another country Christmas wreath. Guys, this is my heart. I am so excited to share my ideas with you of how I create these burlap rustic country wreaths using burlap and fraying the edges. Today's a special day because I'm collaborating with 5 other very talented YouTubers. I'll tell you about that a little bit more later, but for now, let's go ahead and get started and let me show you how I create these rustic burlap wreaths. I'm taking it back to the basics of how I make my rustic burlap base. Guys, I buy the burlap on the bolt and I just use my rotary cutter just to cut off 6 inches, and I cut off 10 strips of these 6-inch pieces of burlap. Now guys, to get the frayed edges, what I do is I go outside. First of all, I always wear a mask when I am working with cut burlap. So I go outside and I just take my hands and run it across it so that I get the frayed edges. And that mask kind of helps with, preventing me from breathing the fibers because it is extremely dusty. So guys, what I'm doing here to make my rustic bases here with the frayed edges is I'm just taking pieces of pipe cleaner left over from previous wreath videos, and I just secure it on the 2 inner wires, and then I start making a bubble. And so since this is just a shorter strip from the cutoff burlap, what I do is I make 3 bubbles, then I go to the second, like the inner ring, and then I make another bubble. And so then I have, to tie it off there in the, at the point where, so that it doesn't slip out from those wires. And so I got some questions on my last video, the gingerbread video, and so I just wanted to clarify that I use the wire to help hold a lot of my burlap, that's cut off like this. Since I'm cutting it off from the bolt, it does take a little bit of time to get it like this, but guys, the end result I am so happy with. So I just continue to, just take the pipe cleaner and I thread it through, just kind of like you're threading a needle kind of thing, back and forth, back and forth. And then I go underneath the wire and, just tie it off like that to secure it in place. Then I start making my bubbles and I just pull it through in between the wires so that it makes the bubble. And then I just kind of push it up as what I can. And what I usually average is 2 strips per each section. So like this wire is a 14-inch wire frame from the Dollar Tree. Those are my favorite, especially those gold or brown ones. I love those. Those are my absolute favorite. And so I'm just showing you here on the back. It really doesn't look that pretty, but I'm gonna cover it up anyway with one of those placemats that I like to get from the Dollar Tree, and from Hobby Lobby. I'm sorry, I get the placemats from Hobby Lobby. And so then here I've got 10 strips on here, and I just tie it off, and it looks really pretty. So I'm showing you here the back because I did have a request to show the back. It's not that pretty, but it's okay because I just make sure that everything is tied off, and the more that I work with it, it does kind of get a little bit more frayed. All right, so these are the homespun fabrics that I'm using in this country Christmas wreath. And so I get all of my homespun usually from Hobby Lobby. I have been fortunate to find some at Walmart as well, but there is an online shop called Jubilee Fabric that has beautiful homespun fabrics, and you can get so many different designs. If you're not familiar with homespun fabric, it is just a woven fabric that you can see on both sides. It's really used in a lot of primitive country decorating, and so I just love it for my country crafts. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my pinking shears and just cutting little notches, and then I'm tying or actually ripping them to give the ragged edges. And so then I cut them in about 13-inch strips. And so then I'm just tying them on to the wreath underneath that wire, just using that wire. And so I put a ton of homespun ribbon on here, or fabric rather. And so then once I get to a certain point, once I get, I kind of alternate all of this ribbon or this fabric. And so then I'm going to be making some bows and using my safety pins that I rustied up using my friend Linda FaithChick777 here on YouTube. I used her rusting technique. If you are looking for the video, look in the description box because that's where you will find the link. Okay, guys, also what I did is I wanted my fabric to be a little bit more stiff, so I pulled out my Stiffen Quick spray and I just sprayed it, just spritzed it, just a little bit, just to give it a little form because, this is fabric and so it is a little limp. And so I just wanted to, have a little bit of form to my fabric. And you can get Stiffen Quick on Amazon. I do have it listed in my Amazon store. You can get it at any craft store in the fabric section, Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Joann's, any of that. But I absolutely love using Stiffen Quick. It's just a stiffening spray that I can use to make limp fabric a little bit more stiffer. All right, so then I continue to just make little knots, and then my rusty safety pins, I am just using those and I just thread it through just right there on the top. Look, oh my goodness, I am just so in love with this wreath. And again, all of this homespun fabric came from Hobby Lobby. Okay, so I have these 30mm jingle bells that I got from Hobby Lobby, my favorite store. And so I'm just taking more of those rusty safety pins and just taking those, jingle bells and actually putting them just straight there on the wreath. And then here is just a little real-time listen. For my tree, I am using one of the tree forms from the Dollar Tree, and I, cut off the jute string, and then I am using Hunter Green acrylic paint, gave it a coat of that. Now here I'm just covering the hole, or filling the hole rather, with spackle, but I didn't even need to do that because my Rusty Star covered it anyway. So I gave this a coat of the Hunter Green acrylic paint, and actually this paint was pretty thick, so all I needed was one coat. Then for the trunk of the tree, I just gave it a couple of coats of cinnamon brown. That's the color that I use. Now to give the stripes, I use antique white acrylic paint and my fan brush. And for whatever reason, I did not get it on film, so I apologize about that. But you've seen me use my fan brush a lot in other painted videos. I do kind of, I just use just a little portion of my fan brush and just go down just to give it the stripe look. So then now I'm just adding some squiggles because y'all know I love my doodles and my squiggles, and so I'm just using a small liner brush and just going around and giving some squiggles. Then I'm going to go back and add some shading. I just use a flat paintbrush and my favorite method of shading, which is dip half of my brush in paint, the other half in clean water. I blend on a paper towel, and then I go around the edges of the trunk of the tree. Then I go back and add shading around the tree, which I usually do first, but I thought I would just be happy with just the squiggles. But I'm like, nah. Once I shaded that trunk of the tree, I'm like, yeah, I want to shade around the tree itself. So I go back and do that. For my paint splatters, I just use some of that antique white acrylic paint. Now, the Americana antique white looks more taupe color, or like a brown color to me. but I love that look. And so then I go and finish the squiggles around the trunk of my tree. Now to give it a finish, I like to use this varnish. You can get it at any craft store, or I do have it listed in my Amazon shop as well. So for the top of the tree, I have one of these rusty stars from Hobby Lobby in the miniature ornament section, and it is beveled, so I wanted it to be flat. So I just took my mallet and just smashed it down so that it would be flat. So to decorate my tree, I have some of these pitberry garland from the Dollar Tree. And so then I just start and just wrap it around my tree, just to give it, just holding it around, just gathering it around the tree, not holding it, but you know what I'm talking about. Just kind of wrapping it around the tree. That was the word that I was looking for. And then also later I go back and I add some, because it wasn't kind of holding in place the way that I wanted it to. So I took just little strips of burlap fabric work as well, and just kind of glued different places in the back of the tree just to hold that pitberry garland into place. So then to add, security for my rusty star, I just used some E6000 as well as my hot glue, and then a clamp to, keep it in place while it dries. All right, so I have a little miniature grapevine wreath that I just clipped apart, and so I want to wrap it around the tree to give it a more woodland, woodsy feel, because I'm country at heart and I love all of the grapevine and twine and twigs and all of that stuff. So of course every grapevine wreath is different, so just kind of had to work it around. I really wanted it to just kind of wrap around the tree, but I just carefully played with it, and eventually I got the look that I wanted. So here is where I'm showing that I just took little pieces of burlap, because that's what I had accessible to me, and I just glued small pieces of that on the back just to kind of hold those the grapevine and the pitberries in place. Okay guys, so I wanted to add a bit more rustic to this and kind of look like twine. So what these are left over from the branches, or whatever you call them, that my pitberry garlands come on. Now, I use pitberries in a lot of my wreaths, and so they come on these garlands, and what I do is I untwist the pitberries and I take them off of these branches, or these garlands right here, and then I'm like, those are too good to throw away, so I use these in my country style wreaths. And so it kind of gives the look of grapevine without all the twigs and all of that stuff. And so I get the best luck of getting my pitberry garlands at Hobby Lobby, especially either in the seasonal, they usually have pitberry garlands during the seasons, as well as in the garland section, they have them. One that I like to use, the white ones with the white berries, that I like to use for everyday wreaths. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is a collaboration hosted by DIY with Nadia. She has brought together these very talented wreath makers, and we are all doing Christmas wreath inspiration. Now guys, to see those videos, there is a playlist link in the description box below, so I know that you will not want to miss what these talented wreath makers are creating for us today. Thank you so much, Nadia, for including me in this collaboration. All right, guys, let me go ahead and show you next how I created the banner for my Christmas tree. So I'm using some canvas ribbon as well as some burlap, but they're each 1.5 inches wide. Okay, so the canvas ribbon is not wired, so that's why I decided to kind of layer it with the burlap just to give it some form. So I'm going to hand letter O Christmas tree, and I'm using my number 2 flat paintbrush to do this. It is my favorite paintbrush to use for hand lettering. Now you could also use stickers. You can use your Cricut or a die cutting cutting machine. You can use a black Sharpie marker or print something out on your computer to give you a banner or something to attach to your tree or anything that you're doing. So the Lord has given me the gift of hand lettering. So I've perfected my hand lettering by lots of practice, guys, lots and lots of practice. I do get questions about hand lettering all of the time. And for those that are interested, I would suggest finding a font that you like, downloading it onto your computer, and then, printing out different letters, printing out different sayings, and practice, because, practice makes perfect. And so I do have some free fonts that I have, put a list together that you can see over on my blog. There is a link for that in my link tree if that is something that you're interested in. Okay, so then I will just go ahead and continue to hand letter Oh Christmas Tree. I actually also did my happy dots because I love my happy dots. And as I always say, the beauty is in the details. And then once I finish doing all of that, then I go back and add a red shadow to my letters just to make them pop. Once all of my paint is dry, then I go back and add just a comma or just a highlight to my happy dots. I really feel that it just really brings out the wording and makes the word and my letters pop. For my banner, what I'm doing is just layering that canvas ribbon on top of the burlap, and it's just because that burlap ribbon is wired and my canvas ribbon is not. So I want something that has a little form, and then I just use my hot glue just to give it, just tack it in different places in the banner so that it gives the raised look like what a flowing banner looks like across the tree. And so then I dovetail the ends by just pinching it together and giving it a V cut, kind of like what the banner usually looks like. And then to attach the banner to my wreath, what I'm using are a couple of those safety pins. And so I just kind of position it on the wreath across the wooden tree where I feel that it looks nice. And I am very, very happy with the end result. All right, so then what I do to attach my tree to my wreath, what I use are these 1-inch cable ties and pipe cleaners, and then I attach it to the frame so that everything is nice and secure. And then I use these or one of these upholstery needles to thread the pipe cleaners through my deco mesh or my burlap, whatever wreath I'm doing. And I got this tip from a fellow wreath maker, and I wanted to pass that along. If that is something that you struggle with getting pipe cleaners or something through your thick burlap or deco mesh, those upholstery needles work great. And I found this set at Walmart. All right, so then now I'm just putting all of the finishing touches on, and I did have to kind of position or kind of play with the banner, to get the right placement, but the end result I absolutely love, and I hope that you do too. To finish it off, I just made just a simple bow with a couple of strands of raffia and glued that there in the center of my rusty star. So I have this greenery as well as more red pip berries from Hobby Lobby, and I just cut those off. I did use my steel picks machine to put the small picks on the end so that I could glue them in between the layers of the burlap to give it a more secure hold.